Thanks very much for pressing red and joining us here outside the Force India motorhome where the celebrations are happening. You can see the flag is being hung. Everybody's talking about the fact that Force India have not just scored their first points in Formula One, they've also ended up second on the podium, right behind Kimi Raikkonen, the Ferrari, and Sebastian Vettel came third. So, this is your forum. It's the red button. We'd love you to get in touch. Drop us an email, f1@bbc.co.uk. There's all manner of things for us to talk about. We've already had a good chat over on BBC One, but now we can really discuss all the things that you want to as well. Martin Brundle will come and join us, and we're heading off to McLaren. That's if Eddie Jordan's allowed in through the front door. We'll find out, won't we, by the time we get there. But right now, let's relive some of the greatest moments from this year's Belgian Grand Prix.
What does round 12 of this World Championship hold for the championship leader, going in with 18 points? But he needs to score. Or away now with Fisichella making a good start. Look at Barrichello, stop there. But out comes Raikkonen, charging away. It's an awful start for Barrichello, but Fisichella's in the lead first. Heidfeld's in there, round on the outside comes Raikkonen as well.
I think
Kubica comes through as well.
Sutil got caught up, I believe, in the middle of all of that. Some tangling at the back, front wing gone. Barrichello went into anti-stall on the grid, but Fisichella away well.
But it's Fisichella leading. Here comes Raikkonen now up the hill. It's Kubica in second place. Raikkonen on a charge now. Up the hill he goes. Kemmel, 200 miles an hour. He's gone from sixth to second. Now he's hunting down Fisichella.
He's gone wide. He's gone across the grass.
Oh, there's a problem there. That was a BMW into the back of him. It's Robert Kubica who's having a debris there. And there's a problem there with a Braun and a Grosjean. Hamilton's gone off as well. Button, we know. There's Alguersuari too. Lewis Hamilton finished then at the top of the hill there at Les Combes.
Safety car will be out now. They'll have to bring the safety car out, but we think Button is caught up in that as well as Hamilton.
Going from bad to worse for Jenson Button. He's finished in the points every race so far, down in 14th and seemingly out of the race now. Safety car is out. This is what happened.
And I think it was Button spinning round that Hamilton backed off to miss it all and got clouted, basically. So he was minding his own business, trying to stay out. And there is a BMW going across the grass. Kubica definitely lost something. It's Jenson Button at the spun and then took Grosjean with him.
I wonder if he got a tap actually from Grosjean just before.
There we go. He's having a look at Kovalainen. Is Button up into Les Combes? Right, turns in. Oh, yeah, he got a whack.
Grosjean caught him from behind.
Yeah.
Either way, it's curtains. Green lights on.
I think Raikkonen could be having a look down into Lassour's hairpin at this rate.
Here we go.
Was well slow.
One little look. Right behind him.
It's a slam dunk from there, surely, for Raikkonen with the extra KERS button and a slipstream. Fisichella has the slightly lighter car. Look at him rubbing against the ground with the lower car. Oh, Raikkonen so nearly. And then it really is game over from there.
Thank you. Into first place. And catch me if you can. But Fisichella having a bit of a look back. But no, Raikkonen will have none of that.
Barrichello then presumably is going to have a look up the inside of Badoa down into the final chicane. And beautifully done. Does he make it stick? Yes, he does. And Barrichello then up to P13. He can still score a point or two from there.
Here comes the race leader, Kimi Raikkonen, and he was absolutely on it for the first sector.
Fisichella too.
So they may be shadowing each other. Let's see how this goes. Got to be good for Raikkonen. Heidfeld and Webber also in. Vettel's just set the fastest lap of anyone.
That seems to be a long time going up. I know they're at the far end of the pit lane. Here comes the Ferrari. Oh, look at that. Sweet. There must have been a slight problem with one wheel there because the fuel and the wheels are about the same time, but it didn't matter. And that looks very close indeed. I think Webber might just get a drive through for that one. He's coasting.
Fernando, please return to the pit slowly. We're going to have to retire, mate. We've got a problem. We need to drive back to the pit slowly. We have a problem with the left front corner, OK?
Well, they don't want any repeat of what happened in Hungary, so back they come. Now, covering each other as we thought they might do. Raikkonen first to stop, top of the pit lane. Well-drilled Ferrari, they're used to winning championships. Smooth and tidy, and that's going to be good enough, surely.
It's a long pit lane at 62 miles an hour.
Medium tyre, and
Where's the Ferrari?
he's just through. Raikkonen's through. So is that a decisive moment in the Belgian Grand Prix? Raikkonen stops, Fisichella stops, but Raikkonen is still in the lead. Round and down, and here comes Vettel. And it's very important to see whether Vettel's got out ahead of Kubica. He has. So Vettel in third. So Raikkonen leads. Ferrari, Force India and Red Bull. And here, behind a man in red, the only winner on this grid today, the previous winner of the Belgian Grand Prix. 3 times he's done it, and he's about to make it 4. Started 6th. Kerr's button had him into 2nd, despite the safety car, and despite the close attention of Giancarlo Fisichella, who may or may not be his teammate at Monza in 2 weeks. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen. He's not won since 2008 in Spain, but he's done it. Kimi Raikkonen wins for Ferrari in Belgium. 4 times winner, but what about the result for Force India? Their 31st race, and they pick up their first points, and it's a podium as well.
Well, congratulations to Kimi Raikkonen. He wins the race. And McLaren picked up a few points today. Heikki Kovalainen, there's been a lot of speculation about his future of late, but he finished 6th today. And we're going to dissect and discuss and talk about the race right here in probably one of the nicest motorhomes in the whole of the paddock. The McLaren brand centre, as I do believe that we must refer to it, and nothing else at any time, gentlemen. Call it a motorhome, and EJ, you'll be out on your ear. In fact, I'm surprised, aren't you, Martin, that he's been allowed in here?
Well, after he asked for half the team to be fired yesterday, yeah, basically.
Steady, Martin.
They'll be lining up downstairs to have a word with you when we've finished. We enjoyed the race, watching it here in the paddock. Martin, give us your thoughts of it from the commentary box.
Well, I think it's a good news day for Formula One. I mean, I've commentated some years where Michael Schumacher won 3/4 of the races and had it all sewn up by August, and you know, there's nothing to talk about. It was like watching grass grow. We're having a stunning season. It's the 3rd consecutive great year of Formula One, but this one is so unpredictable. It's, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen next.
That's part of the issue, wasn't it, when Michael was in his pomp day, but there were no drivers out there that were good enough to beat him.
Well, that's very kind of you to say so, Jake. The show was hosted by some great people back in those days as well. No, I think that what we're seeing in Formula One now, and we have to give FIA and Max Mosley credit for this, is the way they have restricted the engines to 18,000 RPM. Blueprinted the engine so that a works team supplies the same engine to a customer team. And in the days going by, there was no chance that a team other than a works team could win Grand Prix unless there was some sort of fluke. But now we have a situation where, you know, we see the Mercedes engine's a very strong engine, and it was pushing the Force India around there at incredibly high speed. And I don't know if you picked up, Martin, during the commentary, but the first sector performance of the Force India without cares was 2-3 times quicker than any of the other cars out there. Now, Red Bull had the middle sector sewed up, but around the first and third sector, then the Force India just had so much pace.
And those powerful engines, Eddie, they're going to become the sort of the demand of the paddock, aren't they? Everybody will want them. We've already heard that more and more people are asking for the Mercedes engine. They power McLaren. It looks like Red Bull are going to go down that route as well. A fast engine is something special. Everybody wants one.
Yeah, obviously Red Bull will be the key factor in that. They believe that they are suffering. I can't make any comment personally on that, other than the fact that you know, things change very quickly. So what Mercedes have today, Renault could quite easily have tomorrow. I don't want to read anything. Providing you have a good, reliable, honest partner as an engine supplier, I think that's the key to it, because there's very little between any of the engines.
Okay, there'll be lots of emails coming into us, Martin. f1@bbc.co.uk is the email address. What would you like people to talk about? You got problems, Eddie?
Well, I can't hear in one ear. I'd like
okay.
that sorted if I can.
I wondered what you
Use
do.
the other
We'll
one, mate. Use the other one. They both work.
That's old age for you, I'm afraid. Martin, emails. What would you like people to discuss?
Anything and everything. What
Okay.
about conspiracy theory of the Toyota and BMW and Force India having special tyres for this race.
It's an interesting one, that, Eddie, because everybody loves a conspiracy theory in Formula 1, and you take a look at Toyota, Force India, BMW, question marks over their future, and they're at the front of the grid. And, of course, people love to have a little speculation around that, don't they?
Well, why don't we have a little test? We get the viewers to give us their view. Do they realistically believe that Bernie Ecclestone's magic wand is powerful enough to be able to duck in and duck out of the qualifying times? That's the answer, and I'm not going to make my particular view heard on this particular stage. I'd much prefer to wait for others. But, you know, there's an argument. How does he get the championship to go to the wire every race or every season? I mean, if he's able to manipulate something, he's a genius for doing it, because I personally don't think he can. And so those theories are out the window. I think this is just phenomenal what's happening, and everyone is enjoying it.
Of course, we're not accusing anybody of manipulating anything in Formula 1, but it is just a sort of paddock gossip. People love a bit of a chat down there. They love to have a laugh about how Formula 1 is run and things.
Well, because it's silly, isn't it? Because they don't understand necessarily how it all works, and so they look for reasons. And, you know, are the times fixed? And what about tyres? And do they run with lower ballast? And what about jungle juice? You know, special fuel, but that needs 2 weeks on the dyno to remap an engine. And the other engine, you know, the other team's got to be complicit with that, the engine supplier, and it's just complete and utter nonsense. The Force India, they put the right package on, the drivers have come in the zone, good strategy, good pit stops, and they should have won the race.
And in some ways, it's offensive to Force India, Toyota and the rest of the guys to suddenly claim that this is something other than them working hard and doing well.
Well, it is their excuse, and of course things like that. Generally speaking, this is a good news weekend. Martin has already spoken about it, and that is that a minnow can take on the might of Ferrari in a place like here, which effectively is a medium downforce circuit with power taking a very important role.
Okay, well, Giancarlo Fisichella is definitely the talk of the paddock at the moment. Enrico Zannarini is his manager, and we can hear from him right now.
Well, Enrico, what an amazing day. Tell us what Fisi's been like over the last sort of day and a half when he's felt like he's got this good car.
Yeah, it was from Saturday morning, really, because we had plenty of problems on Friday, although we took a very quick lap out of his hat. We had problems and we could not get the right data on the hard tire. So our worry today was how quick will I be on a hard tire? And he was actually very, very quick at the end on his last stint. So he prepared this race very well. He was helped by the team and he was helped by his engineer. He was really always good in his qualifying. That gets you plenty of confidence. And he knew he could just go in the race as quick as he was going in qualifying, and he proved that.
You feel he needs that confidence because you know him better than anyone else. When things aren't going so well for him, maybe his head goes down a bit, but really when he got a sniff of it, he was up there.
Yeah, I think, you know, every time, you've seen it also for other drivers, it's not just Giancarlo. When you get the car that is working well, and let's not forget that driving a Force India, you must appreciate that it's a small team with a small budget coming up, and just in Valencia, we knew we got a good car for the rest of the year, and now we're taking maximum advantage. Only now we can do it.
So what's next for Giancarlo? Tell us, have Ferrari been in touch to ask about his availability for Monza?
No, and I repeat that, nobody has been in touch. And Giancarlo is here with me. I'll go and say bravo to him in a minute. No, and to tell you the truth, we find ourselves in a fantastic team with a great car for Monza, because if the car's good here, it's going to be good in Monza. So we get to Monza with a lot of Italian tifosi. Of course, there's Ferrari, but I have the feeling that we will have a lot of people cheering for Giancarlo in Monza.
Why? Because he's driving a red car?
No. Because he's Giancarlo Fisichella, and because of what he did today. I've never, honestly, got so many messages and so many phone calls after the victory in Australia or after the win in Malaysia. Today was amazing. A great, great day for everyone.
But if De Montezemolo or Dominicali call, will you take the phone call?
My phone is always on, 24/7.
Well done for today, Enrico.
Thank you very much.
I like that. I guess it was only on 12 hours a day before today. It's now on 24/7 if anybody decides to call. Aaron's emailed in to ask if you think Fisi will be allowed to drive for Ferrari at Monza and then go back to Force India, or do you think if it does happen, it would be for the rest of the season? David?
Well, truth is, I've got absolutely no idea, but you've got to take them at face value, and if they've had no contact whatsoever, then you've got to imagine that the events of this weekend haven't changed anything. I actually didn't watch a great deal of what was happening for Luca Badora's race, but clearly some way down from where Kimi Raikkonen was, but they've got to question what is their long-term plan at Ferrari. Obviously, they want Felipe Massa to come back. They have Kimi Raikkonen contracted for next year. Would they want to bring someone else into the team that can take away information next year? The only reason to bring someone else from exterior would be if they're then going to lock him up in a reserve driver or test driver contract for the future. And not lose information. You know, I think that the reason why we're seeing such a competitive season this year is because it's sort of ground zero. You know, it's year one of this new regulation, and all of the teams are having the chance to rediscover, you know, developments, and it's allowing small teams like Force India to be in the mix. I think what we'll see over the coming years, notwithstanding the fact that there is no refueling next year, is a sort of stability of, you know, the big teams finding their feet with the development and aero and all the areas where they can eke out performance, and they'll slowly start to drift to the top again.
Well, I'm sure that red is Luca de Montezemolo's favourite colour, and if he pressed red after today's race, he may well have seen that interview, and he may well be picking up the phone because it's on 24/7 for Giancarlo Fisichella's manager. And if anything happens, of course, we'll bring it to you first if anything breaks this afternoon, but I'm sure that he's got other things on his mind. Right, let's talk about a man who's I think going to stay with Red Bull for the time being now. Anyway, he's signed up for next season, but he's really starting to struggle. 9th again this weekend. No points for Mark Webber. Here are his thoughts.
Mark, a frustrating race for you. Let's just start at the beginning. Just talk us through your start.
I had a good start and good first corner, good first sector as well. And obviously there was a few other people that had problems on the first lap, so we capitalised on that. And we're in good position to get some good points after the stop. And but the drive-through wrecked our day.
And just tell us about that. I mean, you're sitting in the seat, but it's the team who released you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the guy said I was going to be close with Nick. It's always hard to know how much fuel goes in his car. In the end, we could have finished the race in a faster fashion, but that's the way it goes.
In terms of the championship, Jensen didn't finish. Rubens wasn't as high up as he would have hoped. Is it all stalemate still?
Well, I'm not even thinking about the championship, really. I mean, we've got a long way to go, and each race that comes. And disappointed we didn't get any points today for the team, and so that's the way it goes.
Been a fair amount of disappointment from Mark Webber actually over the last couple of races. We heard from him after qualifying for Valencia. I mean, Lee McKenzie asked him a perfectly normal question: what was the problem? And he said, well, the other cars were quicker, and then sort of wandered off. He doesn't seem like a happy man at the moment.
No, I thought he seemed quite emotional there in that piece of video. So, you know, he suddenly was smelling a chance of a world championship, wasn't it? It's ebbed away from him this last couple of races. I think what's doubly frustrating for Mark is he's got a very fast car. You know, it's not like he's had reliability issues necessarily, or he's just not had the raw pace. It's just not worked out during the race.
More than 4 points a race to make up now over Jenson Button. He's 20.5 points behind. Is he still in the hunt? I mean, is it over?
No, it's not over. And if we remember back a few seasons ago, Kimi Raikkonen came back from further away and won the championship by 1 point. So anything could happen. You know, we would never have predicted this weekend going in the podium result we've just seen. The World Championship leader and the current World Champion crashing out at the same corner on the first lap. Formula One is incredibly unpredictable right now. So, you know, what's going to happen in Monza? There's no guarantee that Force India will be as quick there as they have been in around the Spa circuit, because it will be very hot in Monza. Yes, it's a high-speed circuit and you need good straight-line speed, but you know, it's low downforce, even lower downforce than we have here, and that starts to work the tyre very hard.
I saw an interview with Mark Webber this week, Eddie, where he said, this is my one chance to win the title. Do you think that's a dangerous way to start thinking? Because as soon as it starts to slip away, instead of thinking, all right, well, I'll drive well for the rest of the year, pressure's off, I'll attack it again next year, you start to panic because you feel like your one chance, as he's referred to it, is slipping away.
I think when a camera is in front of you, you actually see the full sight, and that the sight I have with Mark is not a strong one. The body language is telling me this looks like a broken man. This looks like a man who's on the back foot. He doesn't feel like he's aggressive. I'm going to take this pole. I'm going to win this Grand Prix. I'm going to win the championship. He doesn't look like that person to me, which is a shame, really, because he looked so good when he won that race, even with a drive-through. And of course, today, I think that was the final straw. He just couldn't get himself together after the drive-through.
Do you see him as a potential champion? Do you think he's got championship material in him?
I'd like to think so, because I think he's one of the darlings of the crowd, and he has a lot of support. But, you know, support, there's no substitute for raw speed, and at the moment he's allowed, as Martin has said, it's ebbing away from him. There's not enough races. Every race goes by, it's more disaster for him. I don't see it.
OK, so Mark finished out the points. Heikki Kovalainen picked up a few points today. He finished 6th for McLaren. Let's hear from him.
Heikki, you had the joy of the cars button for the Spa circuit this weekend, but just tell us a bit about your race.
I think the race was pretty good for me. I think our performance here has not been very good. You know, we saw yesterday in qualifying that we are lacking still the efficiency and the downforce together. So we expected to be a tough race today, but the strategy worked out really well. We started with a soft tire, which I think it was the right choice. I had no problem to warm them up. A little bit of degradation in the middle of the stint, but I managed to pull the rear tires back again, so sort of it didn't go bad, and I was able to overtake quite a few guys. So I think I'm quite satisfied with my performance. I gave it all today, and of course just need to work on now for these medium downforce circuits that we find the same pace as we've found in the slow speed circuits. Monza is another story. You know, it's even lower downforce, and we've been traditionally quite good there. So that kind of package, who knows, it might work as it is already.
Well, David Coulthard here, deep in conversation with Martin Whitmarsh, who's just wandered up. Martin, we just heard from your driver there, Heikki Kovalainen. Lots of question marks over his future so far this season. 6th place for him, a few points. Are you pleased with the way he drove in the race?
No, I think he did a solid job. I think to start 15, we weren't as quick as we needed to be here. To come through and do 6th was a good, solid job, I think, from him. And you know, I think the last race he also raised his game. So he's pushing in the races. He can generally work well in the team. So we'll see.
Well, Heikki did well, pushing his way up there into a point-scoring position. Lewis Hamilton, disappointing weekend all round. We start with him on board here, Martin. You're on the pit wall at this point. What's going through your mind as he sort of makes his way through here? And it was a bit of a crush, wasn't it?
Yes, in fact, at the beginning of this sequence, the problems began. His engine bogged down for reasons we haven't diagnosed yet. He was slow getting off the line, and he was back in it. He had a couple of bumps at the first corner. He managed to survive those, and he's pushing on here. And then I think we're about to see an incident where he got hit by the young Spaniard from behind, and the race was over for him.
Yeah, Jaime Alguersuari hitting him coming into Lecum. A lot of people will be wondering how you can spend so much money and you can have an engine that everybody wants in this paddock, which is the Mercedes, yet it bogs down at the start. Explain what you mean by that and how that works.
The engine, obviously you're trying to control the amount of torque on a start line. You've got too much torque and you can easily break traction. You're trying to control that. I don't know exactly what did happen at the moment, but it would appear that the engine went rich at the critical point. The engine bogged down. Then the RPM dropped. It goes into an anti-stall, which is what happened. So Lewis kept moving, but actually moving too slow, and thereafter he was really back in fighting with the back of the grid, which isn't what you want.
And we saw the world champion standing alongside the potential world champion there. What did Lewis say to you when he returned?
No, I think he's disappointed, we're disappointed, but I think, you know, for a lot of people here, there's been a very strange weekend, very unusual set of results, but I guess for people watching, it's been interesting to see, you know, we got to kick up the pants. A lot of other big teams did. Kimi, I think, did a fantastic job this weekend. You know, he really attacked at the beginning. Obviously took a fairly advantageous line on the first corner, but you know, he's a racing driver. I think he did a fantastic job, and we weren't really in the hunt for a win this weekend.
Martin, you kindly allowed us into the inner sanctum of your strategy department. Where do they think Lewis would have finished given your strategy today? I mean, Vettel came through to third. Would have been anywhere near that?
Well, I think Lewis would have been fourth. I think getting onto the podium today wasn't going to happen, but you know, we could have done with a safety car a little bit later and a little bit longer, and Lewis not get involved in that first lap incident. But given what happened, you know, I think he could have been fourth, but it wasn't to be.
Martin, talking about this mission control and your strategy, and I was pretty heavily voiced about this yesterday. What I was impressed nevertheless about the strategy, I heard at a very early stage, maybe about lap 8 or 9, your engineer telling your driver that keep this up and you can get 6th place. And I said, well, for me, I can't work that one out, but anyway, we'll see what happens. And what's happened here, I'm groveling again to you because he finished 6th. What are you doing to me? Come on, tell us what's the story behind that.
The truth is, we were looking at we have a strategy plot, which I think certainly David's familiar with, and we can see it. I think at the time, I suspect he looked like he was going to be about 7th or 8th, but that's what the plot was telling us. I think we were trying to be encouraging, so I don't want to pretend that we knew that Fernando was going to have that problem. I think we could see he was going to be up there, it was going to be close, but you try and encourage a driver during a race to feel that he's going to get some worthwhile championship points.
Can you explain a little bit more as to what the problem with pace was on this circuit? It's a medium downforce track. What is it about that package that doesn't work so well as we saw in Valencia?
Well, I have to say, David, I wish I could. And yesterday, when I left here, our engineers were still scratching their head, and they still were when I got in the morning. And I went to speak to Red Bull. I spoke to Adrian on the grid. I spoke to Ferrari. Nobody predicted what happened in qualifying. It was an extraordinary qualifying session, and again, that's quite exciting. Not knowing. The fear is now as we leave here, trying to predict where the form is going to be in Monza is very, very difficult. And I wish I could explain it, and I hope that when we get back and pull through the numbers, we'll be able to. But I think many people in a lot of the big teams could not explain what happened in qualifying and also what's happened in the race.
Martin, you were immensely helpful in getting the Mercedes-Benz engine for Brawn and Force India. Do you regret that now? You've even parachuted some people into Force India, and they've beaten you today.
No, I don't regret it. I think there were different circumstances. I think there were two teams that were under some threat at the time. Force India, I think they were trying to decide, Vijay was trying to decide, do I continue to invest in that team? And I think we wanted to help and facilitate that. And at the time, we said, look, we're going to give as much help as we can. If we get to kick up the pants every now and again, I think that's motor racing. We're here to try and beat everybody. If we help a small team like that and they beat us, then I think that's healthy. For Brawn, then they were about to go out of business, and I think it's good for Formula One that they're here. I don't like being beaten by them. I don't like being beaten by any team. That's motor racing, but I think it was the right thing to do.
We've had an email come in from Mike. He says, are you developing the 2009 McLaren solely, or are you now putting 100% worth of effort into next year's car in a similar way to Ferrari? Where do you stand at the moment on this year's and next year's McLaren?
No, we're putting more than half our effort into next year now, and it's for us. We want to win some races. We want to see if we can secure third place in the Constructors' Championship. But really, we have to come out with a fast car next year. We have to be competitive. That's what we're going to try and do. So, this time last year, we were probably still over 90% on the current year's car. That cost us dearly. Obviously, it was a different set of regulations this year. We're developing things on next year's car. When we find something, then frankly we pull it off very quickly, put it onto this car. We know we can design a better car. There are some features in this year's car that we know we can change, but frankly we can't justify the resource. So we've got to, we're not going to change the chassis, but the aerodynamic package will evolve and learn from the development of 2010 car.
Talking about evolution, drivers, Andrew from Edinburgh has got in touch, emailed us. Has Heikki done enough to tighten his grip on the seat for next year? Where do you stand on that at the moment?
I think he's done a better job in the last two races, so we haven't decided. I think we'll keep working. I think he's a great asset to our team, working very hard, and we all like him, and we want him to be successful, so we'll give him a bit more time.
Let's talk about Nico Rosberg and various other drivers being associated with your team. When you've got someone like Lewis Hamilton, why would you risk rocking the boat? He seems happy with Heikki, they drive well together. Lewis, I guess you might say this isn't the case, but seems like your number one driver. He's the guy that's the current world champion. Why would you risk upsetting him by bringing in a new driver?
Well, I think as a philosophy, we want to have the best two drivers we can possibly have in the team. We've always had that philosophy. Sometimes it goes well, and I think it's having a very quick teammate can spur you on, providing it doesn't become political. And I think what we wouldn't want to do is bring someone into the team that will unsettle it. I think we've got a great harmony in the team at the moment. Everyone's working well together, but we've always got to try and have the best two drivers. That's what motor racing's about.
You don't feel you had your fingers burned by getting Lewis and Fernando in together? I mean, would you go for I don't know, Heikki back in the team, or something like bringing Kimi back into the team, something like that? Would you go for a maverick move?
I think in motor racing you get your hands burnt lots of times, and it doesn't mean you don't try and push as hard as you can, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for finding the time. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Martin. All right, well played. Fernando Alonso. Right, let's have a little discussion about how he got on today. Interesting race from his point of view. Wasn't one of his greatest. In fact, Renault, who everybody thought were doing very well, have actually started to struggle. We can see Fernando coming around the first corner. Give us your thoughts, DC.
Well, he just gets he runs over the front wing and wheel of the Force India that was spinning. It looked like he actually lost a bit of his sidewall on the tyre, and then obviously his pit stop here, you can see they had a major problem getting that front left spinner off the car. You know, all the rest of the car service, fuel man's gone, and he's sitting there waiting, and then obviously the cameraman eventually picks up the fact that front left man doesn't seem to be able to reseat that spinner, and I think what eventually happens is he takes it off, puts the other one back on, and then they send the car out. But after the events of what happened in Budapest, clearly there was an issue there, and they decided to retire the car.
It's tailed off a bit for Renault. Many people a few races ago were saying this might be a replica of 2008. Start to struggle and then turn that into wins and do well towards the back end of the season and be one of the best on the grid. Not happening, Martin.
No, I think Alonso's making the best of a bad job. Every time I see that incident in La Source, I wonder how he got that far into the race. It's quite a lot of contact, front and rear, and clearly this spinner system has cost him yet another finish. And you know, he would have been right in the mix there today, wouldn't he? 5th, 6th. It's a pity for the race that he dropped out.
Renault is sitting 8th in the championship at the moment. Many people have blamed BMW's imminent departure on the fact they haven't performed. How much pressure will there be from the head honchos at Renault for someone like Flavio Briatore to start bringing in some results, Eddie?
Huge pressure, I'd say, because success is easy to handle, failure is not, and the boardroom and the people will be estimating with their bean counters exactly what this is costing the company. Annual reports and reviews, shareholders, a lot of pressure, and you know, it'll take Flavio at his absolute best to convince the board to invest for another 3 or 4 years. Nevertheless, I think they have signed the Concord Agreement, and that probably guarantees them to 2012. But then they've been broken in the past. I just hope that's not the case.
2 races, 2 incidents. Romain Grosjean's learning fast in Formula 1, isn't he?
Yeah, and during practice he had some fairly spectacular slides and spins, and he pulled it back. He was a fairly spectacular driver in GP2. If you remember back to Monaco, I think we saw it last weekend when we played in his first Grand Prix weekend. He had a big crash there at the entry to the back, and you know, at this stage I think he needs to just be concentrating on getting finishes. He's not going to win in that car unless something remarkable happens, and he's certainly not going to help himself if he's not completing race miles. So I'm sure on reflection he'll rue carrying so much speed into that corner.
Yeah, the easiest way to displease your team and lose your cred straight away is to crash the car, not finish, and he shouldn't have been anywhere near that kind of incident, and nor should Al-Jashwari. You know, the wiser heads were staying out of it, and they just got wiped out by kids who need L plates on by the looks of it, because that was all very unnecessary. OK, Robert Kubica had a pretty impressive weekend for BMW. They picked up some points, David. Let's just start with him on board and just talk us through how the first couple of corners went for him.
Yeah, well, he left Rubens sitting there on the left side of the grid and then has a nice run down. You can see he's been out-launched by Kimi and the Ferrari, but look at this, nips up the inside of both the Toyota and the BMW, and he's sitting pretty here on the run down to Eau Rouge. I guess he'll be checking his mirrors just to make sure that he doesn't have anyone alongside him. Tries to keep the foot flat, but has to have a lift as he goes through the middle of Eau Rouge, which has cost him dearly, because suddenly Kimi hits the cars button and then just sails past him. But nonetheless, good start.
And a good points finish for Robert Kubica. So today Nick Heidfeld did himself proud as well. Let's now hear from Robert Kubica.
4th today, congratulations. This has been a long time coming, this result for BMW and for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, positive weekend overall. Unfortunately, I think we could achieve a bit more. But yeah, we lack a bit of speed during the race, and it cost us podium, but that's how it is. I mean, overall, I think we have to be happy, because after a difficult season, finishing 4th and 5th, it's a great result for the team, especially in this situation, difficult situation for our team and for the future of the team.
It's interesting to hear you saying that you could have pushed for more, because a few races ago everything seemed very downbeat. I mean, just how much has this car changed since the beginning of the season?
I mean, since the beginning of the season, it has developed quite well, but as everybody, so it's difficult to judge. I mean, we are surprised how car was good, especially yesterday in qualifying. Today we lack bit more, but yesterday in qualifying we were very competitive, and we were surprised because in the end we haven't changed a lot since 2 races ago. Okay, Valencia we have some upgrade,
But here we just adapt our wings into the proper downforce level, and that's how it is.
Congratulations, well done.
Yeah, congratulations indeed, particularly when you take a look at the onboard. And we just noticed it there as we went into the interview with Robert, that he just clipped the back of Kimi Raikkonen there.
Yeah, the footage just stopped a little bit early when we went to Robert. But again, joining on board here, you can see Kimi obviously gets the big drag past on the run down to turn 4. And all seems normal in the braking area. Kimi carries a bit too much speed in. You see, runs wide. Obviously, Robert's thinking, I'm going to get a run on him out of the corner, and then has to get heavy on the brakes here, take avoiding action. And look at that. He's lost part of his front wing end plate. Incredible, actually. He didn't cut the tyre on Kimi's car. And I'd be curious to know just how much that affected his aerodynamic performance for the rest of the race.
Lucky moment that, actually, for both drivers, Martin.
It was indeed, and we did cover that in commentary, actually. We saw that in the early phase of the race. I just spoke to Mario Thiessen on the way to the red button thing, and he was saying that he lost quite a lot of front downforce, which is why Heidfeld was catching him towards the end. And I said to Mario, so, you know, what are they going to say about that back at HQ now they've decided to sell the team and you come on so strongly? He said, I have no idea. I'll find out tomorrow. So I don't think he's too pleased with the way it's heading at the moment, Mario Thiessen, the boss of BMW, but strong performance from both their cars today.
People often watch Formula 1 and they think, well, Mario Thiessen's the BMW boss. He must have been involved in the decision to withdraw the funds. But quite often, the people like Dr. Tyson are the Formula 1 motor racing guys, and these decisions are taken at a much higher level. Oh, Eddie's broken his microphone. That's it. Look at that. You can have two now.
I am jinxed today. I've scrambled your head, and I've now broken the microphone. These decisions are often made by not just the main board, but in Germany they have a thing called a supervisory board. And with the supervisory board, there are people who are not necessarily BMW, either employees or board directors, and they have come with their vast knowledge from all other aspects of industry. And they made a calculated view. I presume they looked at the finances, they looked at the results, and I'm sure they're very unhappy now. I mean, you have to remember, going back, this team was one of my hot fancies for the championship. I really felt good about them. The winter testing was sensational. They obviously stopped early last year with a hope of getting a new car, but they made a mistake with the double diffuser, and I think that scrambled them, and I think it's caused them vast upset, and they're only beginning to get the car right now.
How much has Robert Kubica's stock in Formula 1 been damaged this season by driving for BMW? Is he still seen as one of the quickest guys out there? Because, of course, he's been outscored by Nick Heidfeld for the majority of the season.
Well, it just shows the fickle nature of Formula 1. You know, the back end of last year, he had his first win in Formula 1 at the Montreal Grand Prix, and, you know, he was riding high and presumably on the shopping list of a number of teams. This year we haven't seen a great deal of him, and other than obviously when he's been complaining about not being informed until he's read the internet that BMW are pulling out of Formula 1. So, you know, again, another example is Giancarlo Fisichella. Suddenly his stock is very high because he's pulled off an amazing result. So, you know, they say your last result you're only as good as.
OK, let's turn our attention now to Red Bull and particularly Sebastian Vettel. Let's start by having a look at the way he negotiated this first lap, Martin, with all sorts of things going on. And he was right in the middle of the pack, just where he didn't want to be, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did well not to cream into the back of Barrichello for starters. He's parked himself down the outside. I don't think Raikkonen in front of him had any intention of taking that corner properly, which is another source of debate. Look at the slingshot Raikkonen's got in the Ferrari. Vettel busy looking at the Toyota now, and just blending out of the throttle down the hill.
And you can see the chassis he's got there is Kate's dirty sister. That's his second chassis that he uses there, DC.
Yeah, that brought him success earlier in the year, so he's not too disappointed to be back in that car. But I think he just he got out of position. You can see he's being outrun there by Mark into the braking zone. I think he just got too close up behind. I'm not actually sure which car it was when he was going into Rouge. And look how messy that is. He's had to get back out of the power and then lost another place to Rosberg. That really was a bad first lap for Sebastian.
He might be all over the place, but it's great to see Formula 1 like this, Eddie. Quite often we watch the GP2 races in the morning of a race, and then by the time F1 comes around, it's not quite as dramatic. These opening laps are fascinating to watch, aren't they?
It's unfortunate for Sebastian there, because actually the cause of that was his teammate. He got, you know, the blindness on the left, Webber coming steaming up the inside of him, just fractionally distracted him, and the next thing it's mayhem, and he lost 2 spots there. Vettel drove a very, very strong race to finish third here today.
OK, let's see if he's happy. Here's Sebastian Vettel.
It's third place, what you were hoping for, a realistic display of what was achievable today?
I was hoping for first. Even though starting 8th, I think we did a good race, and in the end we can say that, you know, probably all the ground we have lost was in a couple of laps in the beginning after the restart. Quite difficult to warm up the tires, and a couple of laps in, I think we were steadily catching up. Obviously, at that point, the gap was already too big to the guys ahead, and this is what happens to you if you find yourself in 8th, not in 2nd or 3rd. You lose time, and after that, as I mentioned, I think we did a very solid race. We had no mistakes throughout the whole race. We had a very good pace, and we're catching up the leaders. I think by 3-4 tenths, feel corrected every single lap, which is good. And I think probably the maximum, as we've seen yesterday, it's the cars are very, very tight together, so it's quite tough to make a big difference. And in the end, the gap was too big, but 3rd still is a very good result. Obviously, also looking at the championship board, you see how quickly things can change. There's a bit of a weird championship, up and down. So we need to focus on ourselves and try to finish the races and get points.
You say try to finish the races. Spa's quite a tough one for engines, as is Monza. Obviously, you've got to keep your eye on that. How are you feeling about that situation?
Well, I believe we have a good engine in the car. Obviously, we were not in the best situation, probably especially last race, with 2 engine failures. It's not a secret, everyone knows about it, so it didn't help us. But in the end of the day, we have to deal with the situation, so it means a little bit less practice for myself. If it would help if I would be something like 33, 34 years old with more experience, but I am not. So, we have to get on, and I think nevertheless we are doing a very good job. Probably yesterday could have done a bit better, but in the end, 3rd is still a very good result, in particular to see after the last 2 races which we did not finish. So.
And you must be pleased to have overtaken Mark in the championship as well today.
Did I? I don't know. 6 points more for me, that's all that matters. I don't know the exact amount of points now, but as long as we keep, scoring big points and finish ahead of all the others, I think it's a good thing, and it's what we need.
Well, it's no minor detail that he's overtaken his teammate at Red Bull, but it obviously shows he's focusing on the championship. And when you watch that, Martin, he wears the look of a guy who feels like perhaps the championship was slipping away from him, but after today, he looks right back in it.
It's a head game now in these final 5 races. Can Jenson Button recover his? Where's Barrichello with the championships up for grabs? And then between Webber and Vettel, where are their heads going to be in this run-in? And Vettel looks like he's the calmest and strongest of all 4 of those, frankly, at the moment.
Email from Ricardo, Eddie. He says, Eddie, Red Bull seem to be making a series of mistakes and errors both in qualifying and in the pits. How do the team go about regaining the focus, not just the drivers?
Well, I'm not sure I fully agree with that they're making that many more mistakes. This is a very hard championship, and it's catch-up time for them. And I think for them to try and catch up, the Brawn team is a big problem. They've got 2 very young drivers, but you cast your mind back to these 2. The body language of Vettel was much stronger. Martin rightly said that he's the one that's going to be focused. But coming back to the question, I don't know what they do at Red Bull. They've got the best technically, and they need a bit of luck going for them. And Vettel, if he gets the luck over the next number of races, will be there in a shout.
OK, well, Giancarlo Fisichella is the man who can shout about how successful he was. He had a fantastic day today. Started on pole, couldn't quite make it all the way to the top step of the podium, but Vijay Mallya, you can see he's there high-fiving along with Fisi's manager. Very, very happy indeed. A lot of this team have been with Force India for a long time. They were with them when they were Spiker, with them when they were Jordan, and today they can celebrate their first points as Force India. The man who's delivered them is Giancarlo Fisichella.
Giancarlo, congratulations. Force India's first podium, your first for a while. How does that feel?
Well, it's another great day. It's an amazing result again. Before come here in Spa, if you ask to all the team members to finish 8th, was a fantastic result. Finish second, score second today. It's just great. Actually, I am a little bit disappointed for the result because I could win the race. I've been unlucky with the safety car. Unfortunately, Kimi came quite close after the safety car, and with the KRC he overtook me. When I was behind him, I was actually quicker, but with the KRC it was impossible to be close at the long straight and to try to overtake him. So finally we had exactly the same strategy race. So it's a bit shame, but it's a fantastic result. Thank you for the team. I thank the team because they did a fantastic job in the pit stop, in a garage, everywhere in the factory. So it's good. It's a great result for me and even for them.
And it looks like you were the fastest car out there because you were in the dirty air from Kimi as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure I was quicker than him. With both tires, the behavior of the car was really consistent. I was driving very, very well, pushing the limit with no mistakes. So it's been a fantastic race, apart the restart after the safety car. Yeah.
Did you really believe at the start of this race that you could finish on the podium? Because there were a lot of people doubting your speed at the start.
Well, after yesterday, I was pretty confident to score a lot of points. The target was to get on the podium. We finished second, which is fantastic. But yeah, actually we could win the race. So we need to be positive even for the rest of the championship. We got a good handling of the car, we got a good speed, and we can do it.
Eddie, how important for Force India that this was a real win? They weren't given this by anybody. They had the quickest car out there, not a win, second on the podium. How important for them that this was real, though? This wasn't handed on a plane. It wasn't other people's mistakes that gave them these points.
Well, it'll seem like a win because it was so out of context for what they've been achieving over the last number of races this year and indeed last year. But what you have to understand that this is no fluke. We've talked about it, we've analysed it. This was a very strong, solid performance. And if I was Giancarlo, I know the lure would be to go to Ferrari if he got the call. I'd stay with this team because he needs to find out where he's going next year. And as far as I'm concerned, he needs to bolt himself down somewhere there where he's liked and loved, and that's where it gets here. It gets the love.
Do you agree with that, DC? Stay at Force India over Ferrari? Surely driving for Ferrari for half a season is more of a lure than getting an extra season out of Force India, isn't it?
I would go for performance, and you know, Martin will remember this in our conversations when I was racing. It was always about finding the car that would give the best performance over finances or length of contract. So if he just want, you know, he's done 200 and something Grand Prix already. He doesn't need another season running around in the middle pack, if indeed next year the team were back there. And you cannot honestly believe, Eddie, that Ferrari are a worse option for him in the long term if he was given that choice than to stay at Force India.
It's not just about performance either, though, is it? It's an Italian at Monza for Ferrari. I mean, that's everything.
Yeah, but that's very short term. And I have to come back on David and say, hang on a second. Are you excluding if the man that was sitting there, Martin Whitmarsh, assures us that Alonso is going to be with Ferrari? They've already got a driver. They can't run 3 cars. So there's a driver already too many in the package. And you saying Fisichella should just run there at their beck and call? I'd say no. I'm very happy here. These people have believed in me. They've given me a drive for the last 2 years. I may be able to get into a better car and a better team, because sure as hell he's not going to Ferrari next year. Why should he go? And you've already heard Dominicali. He's not going to allow a driver go in there who will take the knowledge away.
So there.
Well, I was just looking at purely from a performance point of view. I wasn't thinking about the longer term and all the ramifications of the other drivers. But, you know, fair point, Eddie.
Is Fizzy thinking long term, though?
I think he'll think short term. I tend to agree with Eddie that if he wants to long term thinking, he should probably stay where he is and build that relationship further. But, I mean, in a heartbeat, he'll say, yes, I'll drive for Ferrari. It ticks so many boxes, like you said, and you wouldn't turn that opportunity down. Nobody would turn that opportunity down.
OK, right, let's have a look at Kimi Raikkonen start then, and a couple of moments involving him that gave him this win, his first win in a long time. David, sort of kept out of trouble. That was the main thing for him at the start, wasn't it? Use that curves button to effect and don't get taken out.
Yeah, I'd like to see at what point he pushes the curves button. I believe it's at 100k he can deploy it, but don't really see it on the graphic. Interesting point that Martin mentioned, that he didn't think he had any intention of staying inside that artificial grass and just took the slingshot around the outside and then massive speed up over the hill, and really, you know, that was just very easy for him to run past Robert Kubica, who obviously had a bit of a wobble in the middle of Eau Rouge. Now, what surprises me is that when he gets to the braking zone here, he actually overdoes it. Look at that. He's out wide, he's on the grass, and he was a lucky boy to get away with that. He gets hit up the back by Robert, could have got a puncture, and caused all sorts of mayhem behind him, and we lost World Championship leader and the World Champion.
Fisichella can't see anybody in his mirrors at the moment, thinking, yeah, this is unbelievable. But I think that Kimi, if you hear him put the throttle on, it's right in the middle of the corner and he's already unravelling the steering wheel. He had it in his mind to go onto the no man's land.
I'm somewhat critical of Kimi, partly because at the hairpin, I personally think the move that he's going down the green patch off the road and then joining the racetrack at full speed, I think it's dangerous. I'm absolutely certain of it.
DC?
Well, he is off the racetrack, but and I think this is the proper. Yeah, this is the restart for the safety car. So here he is running down through a rouge, smoking Fisichella there as he drags his plank up through. Kimi gets a little bit wide out onto that curve, but then just massive slipstream, and he moves to the left as Giancarlo is just a sitting duck there, and does pick up a bit of a slipstream again from Kimi, but he's not going to make the same mistake. Gets in the brakes nice and early into turn 4 and makes that stick.
It must have been hard for Fizzy there. I mean, he would be scared to death of running a Ferrari off the road. I think maybe next time out, he'd have made it a little bit harder for Kimi to come through.
OK, well, Kimi did the business. Kimi got past Fizzy, and Kimi went on to win the race. A huge tonic for Ferrari. Don't forget, of course, Felipe Massa isn't here after his accident a few weeks ago. He's recuperating back in Brazil. This would have been great for him. Fantastic for Force India, but really special indeed for Kimi Raikkonen. Question marks over his future. What will those questions be now? Well, let's hear from the man himself.
Kimi, congratulations. What's it back being a winner again?
I feel the same than before, so I mean, doesn't really change. But I mean, it was good result for me, for the team. We knew that we have all the chances if we get a good start, and that's what I managed to do. And I mean, probably not the fastest car in the race, but overall we were fastest, so it was okay.
You say you've probably not got the fastest car out there, but you certainly seem to have the secret to Spa. What is that?
Not secret, really. I mean, if you get the car working well and you manage to get in the front on the beginning, it gives you all the chances to keep everybody behind you. So. I mean, I enjoy here because you usually get good racing, people overtake each other, and you get good battles. So it's not just nice for the drivers to have good fights, but also for the people. So perfect place for us.
And heading to Ferrari's home circuit, into a big power circuit, how do you think the car will fare there?
Probably will be a bit more difficult. You need to have a good car over the curbs and to be able to be fast. But our car is usually nothing special over the curbs, so it can be a bit difficult. But let's wait and see on a practice on Friday, and then really make more guessing where we're going to end up.
Yeah, that's right, folks. He has just won his first Grand Prix in 25 attempts. Remarkable to think it, really. What an interesting bloke he is, David. You've driven alongside him. Tell us what he's like close up.
Well, I've seen a photograph of him, what I presume must have been roaring with laughter, but I'm now starting to doubt it must have been a Photoshop. Because when I think back to being teammates, and I was teammates with him for 2 years, that's kind of the way he is all the time. And, you know, we'd go testing together, and he'd get out of the car between runs, and he'd literally fall asleep in the back of the truck. And they would wake him up, put his helmet back on, he'd go out, set a blistering lap time, come in, give some information on the car, and then go and fall asleep again. You know, he's some sort of amazing conservationist, isn't he? He's like, he's been told that
I think 4 double A's would do it in the back there, so he'd come alive again.
I'm not sure 4's enough, is it, Eddie?
I mean, if he behaves like that, having just won his first Grand Prix out of the last 25, I'm spellbound. I'd be jumping over the table, but then that's a different character. But this is the coolest guy I've ever seen, not just in motor racing, but I doubt if there's a cooler man in sport generally, because it's just bizarre. How can you be that unpassionate about what you've just achieved?
Driving for Ferrari next season. Anybody disagree? Anyone think he won't be driving for Ferrari next year?
I don't think so.
Martin?
I think it's massively complicated for them. They've got, apparently Felipe Massa's having a plate put on his skull. They don't know where he's at. Will he be fast enough? Will he ever race again? We think Alonso's going there. What are they going to do with Raikkonen now he's gone and won the race to complicate it further?
DC?
I don't see why you would kick him out of the team if he's got a solid contract and you've got good enough budget to pay him. The guy's just finished in the podium the last 3 races and won a Grand Prix. Okay, he's never going to be probably the most motivational when it comes to public speaking, but he's delivering on the racetrack.
Okay, final one actually. Chris wants to ask David if drivers get paid bonuses if they finish in the points. I would imagine not after that interview. That didn't look to me like a driver that's going to get a bonus.
Yeah, he'll be on a massive win bonus for sure. But, you know, different people are motivated by different things. You know, some people it's all about money, and I don't know what it is about for Kimi. Maybe he just grins from ear to ear when he's driving the car. So maybe we should call for sort of in-helmet cameras. Maybe he's the happiest guy out there.
Okay, well, listen, we've heard that the stewards are taking no action after the incident at Lecumbe. We can see the overhead here. Are you surprised that they're not taking any action against anybody here, David? It's just a racing incident?
Well, it's not. We didn't sort of see it that well. I think that you know, Lewis was a little bit unlucky there to be caught by the back of the Toro Rosso. Interesting, these two guys, you know, not a lot of conversation going on between them. It's not as if they ran into each other. Yeah, Jensen's obviously looking for the quickest way home. You know, maybe that's where the competition is.
Yeah, they were both trying to find the motorbike back first, weren't they?
No, weren't they just. Okay, let's just confirm the results then from the Belgian Grand Prix here in Spa. Let's do a bit of a driver of the day, starting with Martin. I'm kind of guessing that most of you will be going for our second place Force India guy.
You got any other questions you want to give me the answer to? Yeah, Fisichella would be my comfortable driver of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. It was a sensational and massive surprise.
DC?
Well, I think it's the comeback of the season for the team and for Giancarlo, and it cements his opportunity to continue in Formula 1 next year, I'm sure.
Yeah, I imagine BMW would have loved to have made a few headlines actually this weekend, Eddie, but their return to form has been slightly overshadowed, hasn't it?
Nevertheless, it hasn't gone unnoticed. You can see that there was a lot of pleasure on the face of Mario going back into the motorhome after the race to finish both cars top 5. Big result for them, bearing in mind what they've achieved so far this year, which has been very little.
Yeah, well, you can see that neither driver makes it into the top 10 at the moment. This is after 12 rounds of the 2009 championship. Jenson Button's lead. Well, it's getting close, isn't it? Rubens Barrichello has moved up once more. 16 points is the difference now. Sebastian Vettel is the closest challenger to Brawn GP at the moment. Mark Webber, he slips down to 4th. Kimi Raikkonen picked up a stack load of points today in 5th place. Nico Rosberg, well, he's having a solid season, isn't he? More points there for Williams. He's the only driver at Williams to have scored points. Nothing for Kazuki Nakajima so far. Lewis Hamilton there in 7th. And Heikki Kovalainen, he had a few points today. He was down there in 10th spot. And for the first time, I think we should take a look at the bottom. In 10th position there, Toro Rosso. All 10 teams have now scored points in Formula 1 this season, and the monkey is off Toro Rosso's back. Those 5 points will look like 500 points, Eddie Jordan.
The Force India, I think that's a major result for them. You didn't say Toro Rosso by any chance, did you?
No, I would never have done that. No. Of course, I was talking about Force India. I have my eye on them all the time.
It's that scrambling effect I seem to have on you. Well, anyway, let's move on. It was a great weekend, and I think it's a weekend we'll all remember.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out to me of all the stuff you just read out, Jake, is Button still got a 16-point lead coming off the back of 5 dismal races. It's incredible how they haven't closed that down.
That's what happens, though, David, when you have a different challenger each week, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I was never in that situation of leading the championship. But, you know, he's had poor races, but good results because, as Martin said, and different guys picking up the points. So, yeah, 5 races to go. What can he do? You know, that's been a bad run of results. And, you know, I guess there's not much more analysis they can do that they wouldn't already have done.
He can't keep this run going, though, can he? Because they will start to catch him, Eddie.
They will if he continues. But if he sensibly go home and he think, how did I get away with this? Damage limitations, he is the big winner of this weekend. He's 16 points, another race gone. And with all of that confusion and competition at the front, he will be a happy man. But let's hope he just turns his fortune and moves further up the grid and gets some decent results, because then he can be world champion.
OK, let's just remind you that you can see highlights of today's race on BBC 3 this evening from 7 o'clock. And straight after that at 7:45, it's the MotoGP from Indianapolis, round 12 of their season as well. Press the red button as well for more coverage of that, so don't miss it. Well, Eddie Jordan says that Jenson Button is the big winner at the Belgian Grand Prix. Well, the real winner is Kimi Raikkonen. Ferrari are back at the front. But, of course, the headline this weekend belongs to Force India. We'll see you in Monza in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.
This is extraordinary.
There's nothing between them. Kimi Raïkkönen wins for Ferrari in Belgium, but what about the result for Force India?